All right, welcome to another deep dive. Looks like you guys sent in some fascinating stuff for us to unpack this time around.
Yeah, for sure. Really interesting mix.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of everything. We've got attracting romantic interest, leadership skills, personal growth, even some tips on handling conflict like a pro.
Yeah,
It's really like a masterclass in becoming your best self.
it is. It's amazing, how all these seemingly disparate topics actually are interwoven.
Right.
It speaks volumes about, how interconnected our lives truly are.
Absolutely. And you know what's really funny to me is how one of the sources, the one about what to do when you catch someone's eye, actually starts with self-awareness.
Hmm.
Seems a little counterintuitive, right? You
Yeah.
think it would be about like external techniques, but it starts with looking inward.
Yeah, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
I think that actually highlights a really, really crucial point, which is, knowing yourself is the foundation for everything else we're going to explore. It's like, building a house. You need a solid foundation before you can even think about the walls or the roof.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm starting to see the connections here.
Yeah.
Um, so could you elaborate a little bit on why self-awareness is so crucial, especially like based on what you've seen in these sources?
Well, just think about it this way. If you don't understand your own motivations, strengths, weaknesses, your triggers, how can you effectively communicate with others? Build strong relationships, navigate challenging situations.
Right.
It's like trying to sail a ship without a rudder.
Yeah. You'd just be drifting
Exactly.
at the mercy of the winds and the waves.
Yeah, so self-awareness gives you that sense of direction. That ability to make conscious choices.
Right.
Steer your life in the direction that you want to go. And these sources actually provide some really, really practical strategies for cultivating this self-awareness.
Like what? I'm curious. Give me some specifics.
Okay, so one recurring theme is mindfulness,
Okay.
and it's not just about meditation, though that can be a very helpful tool. It's really about cultivating a present moment awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, even your bodily sensations.
Okay, so I've heard a lot about mindfulness lately, but I'm still a little bit fuzzy on how it actually works in practice. What do these sources suggest how do we apply it to our daily lives?
So one source actually uses this really great example.
Okay.
Imagine that you're constantly feeling stressed out in a specific environment.
Okay. Yeah.
Mindfulness encourages you to pause, take a breath, and really pay attention to what's triggering that stress response.
Right.
Is it the lighting? Is it the noise level? The presence of certain individuals?
Interesting. So it's almost like becoming a detective of your own inner world,
Yes.
figuring out what makes you tick.
Exactly. And once you identify those triggers, you can then take proactive steps to minimize their impact.
Okay.
Whether that's changing your environment, setting boundaries, or developing coping mechanisms.
So it's about becoming more intentional in how we respond to the world around us. Yes.
Rather than just reacting on autopilot.
Precisely. And that intentionality is actually a key theme that runs through all of these sources.
Okay.
It's not just about reacting to whatever life throws our way. It's about actively shaping our experiences and creating the life we want.
I love that. It's empowering to think that we have, more agency than we often realize.
Absolutely. And speaking of taking control, the sources also delve into the importance of communication skills.
Okay.
And not just for attracting romantic interest, but for building any kind of meaningful relationship.
Communication, the big one.
Right.
What are some of the key takeaways from these sources about that? Because I feel like everyone talks about communication,
Mm-hmm.
but very few people break it down into actionable steps.
Absolutely. So one source really emphasizes the importance of active listening, empathy, and assertiveness.
Okay, let's break those down one by one.
Okay.
What does active listening actually look like in a conversation?
So it's really about truly engaging with the other person.
Not just waiting for your turn to speak, but truly absorbing what they're saying,
Right?
both verbally and non-verbally.
Yeah.
So paying attention to their body language, their tone of voice, even the things they're not saying.
So being fully present in the conversation,
Yeah.
not just physically, but mentally and emotionally.
Exactly. And then there's empathy, which is, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about agreeing with them or
Right.
condoning their actions, but simply trying to see the world from their perspective.
Putting yourself in their shoes,
Exactly.
even if those shoes don't quite fit you.
Exactly. And then this leads to the third element, which is assertiveness,
Okay.
which is often misunderstood as being aggressive or pushy.
Right.
But these sources clarify that it's about expressing your needs and opinions clearly and confidently
Okay.
while still respecting the other person's perspective.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between being a pushover and being a bulldozer.
Exactly. Advocating for yourself while also creating space for collaboration and compromise.
I love that. It's a much more nuanced and empowering approach to communication.
Absolutely. And these sources offer some great examples of how to apply these principles in real-life situations.
Okay.
For instance, one source mentions a scenario where you're in a meeting
Yeah.
and you have an idea that you want to share.
Mm.
So assertive communication in this context would involve confidently presenting your idea while also inviting feedback from your colleagues.
Right. Like, hey, this is what I think, but I'm also open to hearing your perspective.
Exactly. It's about creating a dialogue, not a monologue.
Right.
And that kind of open communication can be incredibly powerful, not just in the workplace, but in all areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
It helps build trust, it fosters collaboration, and it prevents misunderstandings from escalating into conflict.
And speaking of conflict, that's another area where these sources offer some really valuable insight. So what are some of the key strategies that they highlight for navigating those, tricky situations?
Well, one of the most important is the ability to separate the problem from the person.
Okay.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment
Oh, yeah.
and see the other person as the enemy.
It feels like you're on opposite sides of a battlefield sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, these sources remind us that more often than not, you're actually on the same team,
Right.
just trying to reach a common goal.
Yeah.
The key is to focus on the problem itself,
Okay.
not on attacking the other person.
So it's like, hey, we have a shared challenge here. Let's work together to find a solution.
Exactly. And another key strategy is focusing on shared interests rather than opposing positions.
Okay.
For example, one source mentions this scenario where two coworkers are arguing about a budget.
Oh, yeah.
One wants more resources, the other one is pushing for cost cutting.
Yeah, it's easy to see how that could be a win-lose situation.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
But if they step back and they focus on their shared interest, which is likely the success of the project,
Right.
they can then start brainstorming solutions that benefit everyone involved.
So instead of fighting over the same resources, they work together to expand the pie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that shift in perspective can make all the difference.
Yeah.
It transforms conflict from a destructive force into an opportunity for creativity and collaboration.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a powerful shift in thinking, right? Like from adversaries to allies, from fighting over resources to creating abundance.
Right.
I love that. I'm starting to see how these skills apply not just to specific situations, but our overall approach to life.
Yeah, that's a great insight.
Yeah.
And that leads us beautifully into another key theme that emerges from these sources, which is resilience.
Okay.
And it's not just about bouncing back from setbacks. It's about adapting and thriving in the face of challenges.
So less about being rigid, more about being like a willow tree,
Yes!
bending with the wind instead of breaking.
Exactly. It's about developing that inner strength and flexibility to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life. And the sources offer some really practical tips for building that resilience muscle.
Okay, do tell. I think we could all use a little more resilience in our lives.
So one source suggests reframing challenges as opportunities for growth.
Okay.
Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, try viewing them as feedback.
Okay.
What can you learn from this experience? How can you adjust your approach moving forward?
So it's about shifting our mindset from why me to what can I learn from this?
Exactly. It's about seeing those failures as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks.
Right.
Another key aspect of resilience highlighted in the sources is the importance of building a strong support network.
Right.
Having people you can rely on. Friends, family, mentors.
Mm-hmm.
That can make all the difference when you're facing difficult times.
It's like having a safety net to catch you when you fall.
Exactly. It's about knowing you're not alone,
Mhm.
that there are people who care about you and want to see you succeed.
That-
And remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
That's so important to remember. We
Mhm.
try to tough it out on our own so often,
Mhm.
but sometimes the strongest thing we can do is just ask for help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, while we're on the topic of strength, I wanted to touch upon another theme that unexpectedly emerged from these sources.
Okay.
Creativity.
Creativity. Okay.
It might seem unrelated to things like leadership or conflict resolution,
Right.
but there's a fascinating connection.
I'm all ears because I've always considered myself more of a logical thinker, but I'm very intrigued by this idea of tapping into my creative potential.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the link here?
So one source defines creativity as the ability to think outside the box,
Okay.
come up with innovative solutions, and approach problems from a fresh perspective. And these skills are valuable in any field, from attracting a romantic interest to leading a team to resolving conflicts and even building resilience.
So it's about bringing a fresh perspective to any situation, not just like artistic endeavors.
Exactly. It's about seeing possibilities where others see limitations.
Okay.
And the sources offer some great tips for cultivating that creative spark.
Like what? Spill the secrets.
Okay, one suggestion is embracing diverse experiences and perspectives.
Okay.
So the more you expose yourself to different cultures, ideas, ways of thinking, the more you'll stimulate your own creative thinking.
It's like adding different spices to a dish.
Yes.
The more variety, the more interesting the flavor.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of rest and reflection.
Okay.
You know, in our always-on world, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to give our minds a break.
I am so guilty of that. The to-do list never ends.
Right. But one source emphasizes that stepping back, allowing ourselves to relax and recharge, can actually lead to those aha moments of inspiration.
Right. It's like taking a step back from a painting to see the whole picture
Yes.
instead of getting lost in the details.
Exactly. It allows for those new connections to form, those new ideas to emerge. And that's essential for any creative endeavor, whether it's writing a novel, solving a complex problem at work, or even figuring out how to approach that special someone.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. So we've got self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity. It's like we're building a toolkit for like a well-rounded, successful life.
You got it. And these sources also delve into a topic that often feels daunting, yet utterly essential.
Okay, which is,
Leadership.
okay, leadership. I have to admit that the word always makes me think of like CEOs, politicians, people in positions of like formal authority.
Right.
But these sources seem to be suggesting a broader definition of leadership.
Yes.
What's the takeaway here for someone who might not be in like a formal leadership role?
Well, one source defines leadership as influence.
Yeah, okay.
The ability to inspire and guide others toward a shared vision.
Okay.
And this kind of leadership isn't limited to those with fancy titles. It's a skill that can be developed and utilized in any area of life.
So whether you're leading a team at work or you're captaining a sports team or you're even just organizing a family gathering, it's about having that ability to bring people together and inspire them to take action.
Exactly. It's about motivating and empowering others, not just giving orders.
Right.
And the sources highlight some key ingredients of effective leadership.
Okay, I'm taking notes here. What are the ingredients?
Okay, one is leading by example.
Okay.
It's about walking the talk, embodying the values and behaviors you want to see in others. So if you want your team to be hardworking and dedicated, you need to demonstrate those qualities yourself.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Exactly. And then there's empathy, which we talked about earlier in the context of communication.
Right.
But it's equally important for effective leadership.
Okay.
A good leader takes the time to listen to their team, understand their concerns, their aspirations, and create an environment where everyone feels heard and valued.
It's about building trust and fostering a sense of collaboration, not just dictating from on high.
Exactly. And finally, there's adaptability.
Okay.
In today's rapidly changing world, being able to adjust to new circumstances is crucial for any leader.
So it's not about having all the answers. It's about being flexible, open to new ideas, and willing to learn and evolve as situations change.
You got it. A good leader embraces uncertainty, knowing that the only constant is change.
Right.
And by embodying these qualities, leading by example, demonstrating empathy, and embracing adaptability, you can inspire and guide others, regardless of your formal position.
That's awesome. I'm starting to see how leadership isn't just like a role, it's more like a way of being.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it ties into another key concept that emerges from these sources, the growth mindset.
Ah, the growth mindset. I've heard that term thrown around a lot, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it means in practice.
Yeah.
How do these sources define growth mindset?
And it's essentially the belief that your abilities aren't fixed, but rather they can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. It's the opposite of thinking, I'm just not good at math, or I'm not a creative person.
So it's about seeing yourself as a work in progress, always capable of learning and growing.
Exactly. With a growth mindset, you embrace challenges, you see setbacks as opportunities for learning, and you believe that you can always improve with dedication and effort.
It's like seeing your potential as a seed that can blossom into something beautiful. But it takes nurturing and cultivation.
That's a beautiful analogy, and the sources highlight how this mindset can have a profound impact on your life.
Okay.
Not just in terms of like your achievements, but also in your relationships and overall well-being.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the connections here, right? Self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity, leadership, growth mindset. It's like they're all pieces of the same puzzle.
Yes.
Each one building upon the other.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another crucial piece of the puzzle.
Which is,
Well-being.
okay, well-being. I have to admit, sometimes in the pursuit of all these other goals like success, leadership, creativity, well-being kind of takes a back seat.
Yeah.
But these sources seem to be saying that it's not just a nice to have, it's essential.
Exactly. You know, it's like the foundation of a house. You can't build a strong, sturdy structure without a solid base.
Okay.
And the sources offer some great advice on prioritizing well-being, even amidst the hustle and bustle of life.
So it's not about choosing between success and well-being.
Right.
It's about recognizing that they're interconnected.
Exactly. When you prioritize your well-being, you actually enhance your ability to achieve those other goals.
Okay.
It's like filling your cup so you can pour from it without running dry.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So what are some of the specific strategies these sources suggest for incorporating well-being into our daily lives?
Well, the sources offer a variety of different approaches, but one consistent theme is the importance of setting boundaries. It's about recognizing that you can't do everything.
Right.
And that saying no sometimes is not only okay, but is actually crucial for protecting your energy and time.
It's so true. So often we feel pressured to say yes to every request, every opportunity.
Yeah.
But these sources seem to be saying that sometimes the most empowering choice is saying no.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of your limits and making choices that align with your values and priorities. And then there's the classic advice that's always worth repeating.
Yeah.
Prioritizing self-care.
Okay.
And, you know, this can look different for everyone, but it might involve things like getting enough sleep, eating nourishing foods, moving your body in ways that feel good, spending time in nature, or pursuing hobbies that bring you joy.
It's about creating a life that feels good on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Not just chasing some distant goal of happiness.
Exactly. And one source actually highlights a practice that I found incredibly powerful in my own life.
Okay.
Gratitude.
Okay.
Taking the time each day to appreciate the good things in our lives.
Right.
Even the small things
Yeah.
can really shift our perspective from what's lacking to what we already have.
Yeah, it's like training our minds to focus on the positive, which can then have a ripple effect on like our mood, our relationships, even our physical health.
Exactly. And, you know, when we combine all of these elements, self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity, leadership, growth mindset, and well-being.
It's a lot.
It is. But we create this powerful foundation for living a truly fulfilling and meaningful life.
This deep dive has been quite the journey.
It has.
We've covered so much ground,
We have.
from deciphering a look across the room to mastering the art of leadership.
Right.
And it all comes back to this idea of self-awareness, purpose, and well-being.
It's remarkable how these seemingly disparate topics are so interwoven.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to the power of personal growth. That by focusing on developing ourselves,
Yeah.
we can create positive ripple effects in all areas of our lives.
It's like we're not just individuals on separate paths.
Right.
We're all interconnected. And our personal growth contributes to a greater collective good.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the final point that these sources emphasize,
Doug?
aligning our actions with our values and purpose.
This is where things get deep.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with finding their purpose.
Mhm.
It can feel like this elusive thing that's out there somewhere,
Right.
but we're not quite sure how to grasp it.
Yeah.
What guidance do these sources offer?
Well, then source suggests starting with identifying your core values,
Okay,
you know, the principles and beliefs that are most important to you.
right.
So these values act as a compass, guiding your decisions and actions.
So it's about figuring out what truly matters to you,
Hmm.
what makes you tick, and then using those values as a filter for making choices.
Exactly. And then there's purpose, which is your why.
Right.
The reason you get out of bed in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
it's that driving force behind your actions.
Okay.
the thing that gives your life meaning and direction.
So it's not just about what you do, it's about why you do it.
Precisely. And when your actions are aligned with your values and your purpose, you experience this sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that goes beyond external achievements.
It's like your inner compass and your outer actions are in perfect harmony.
Exactly. And that harmony leads to a life that is both successful and meaningful.
Right.
Ultimately, isn't that what we all strive for?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've explored so many facets of personal growth: self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity, leadership, well-being, purpose. It's like we've been given a roadmap for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And the best part is the journey is just beginning.
Right.
Personal growth is an ongoing process of learning, evolving, and becoming the best versions of ourselves.
It's an adventure that never ends.
It doesn't.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
That personal growth is within everyone's reach. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about taking those small steps, day by day, to become the best version of yourself.
And to our listener, remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources available, people who care about you, and a whole world of knowledge and support out there waiting to be discovered. So keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Beautifully said. And remember, the journey starts today. What small step can you take right now to move closer to your goals and create the life you desire?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.